Omaha Library here. We're having a hosted program with OPPD tonight. So just to get you guys started, I did want to throw something out that the Omaha Public Library has partnered with OPPD with. You can check out here at the library. This is called a walk detector. You guys have quite possibly heard of it already. And what it is a device that you can plug in to the wall and figure out how much each of your devices are using. So that's something you can check out. Just go up to the desk and we can help you guys check that out, along with some other different resources that we have up there. So with that, we're just going to hand it off to Denise over here, and she's going to talk about sustainability.
All right, well, thank you very much. Yeah, the libraries have been great. We really have been trying to give opportunities for people to learn more about their energy usage and trying to be creative on hitting different ways and approaches to it. So it's been great to be a partner with them. As she shared, I'm Denise Keene. I'm the manager of demand side and sustainability at OPPD. And some of them have already been talking to me about the technical. So if I get too technical, because sometimes I like this stuff. That's why I've been doing it for 6 years. So if I get into the details a little more, just pull me back up. And if there's some of the things that you want more information on, and it is more of a detail, and we see somebody next to you kind of dozing off to sleep, then maybe we'll have a one-on-one conversation afterwards, if that sounds okay with everybody. I would like to go ahead and introduce a few people from our staff. Tony, you want to introduce yourself? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Waldy. I'm a supervisor of products and services with the Omaha Public Power District. I've been there for 26 years. We do offer some customer solutions. We do other things besides sell electricity. So if you'd like to visit in the back, maybe afterwards, talk about any products and services or any questions that you might have, I'd be glad to help.
Judy?
And I'm Judy Martin. I'm with our Corporate Marketing and Communications Division, and I coordinate the activities for energy education, primarily focused with our low income, our fixed income, our senior groups. We have long-term education programs. I also oversee our energy assistance programs that is supported by you, all of our customers, and our employees. I also oversee our Speakers Bureau, so anytime we give presentations or workshops, that sort of thing, I handle those. So if you're with an organization and need a speaker or a tour of a facility, let me know. And then other consumer relations type activities and fundraising, we do the Heartland Walk for Warmth and those kinds of things. So thank you all for coming tonight.
And then Russ, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Russ Baker, and I'm the manager of Environmental and Regulatory Affairs. And again, like everybody said, thank you all for coming and showing interest. One thing that we are very proud of at OPPD is our sustainability and a lot of the energy efficiency type projects that Denise helps oversee, and really kind of the starting ground for a lot of those projects when they start rolling down. So thank you all for coming, and feel free to ask questions during the presentation.
And is Jamie here?
She's not here, so
If she comes, just come on in. Come on in. This is going to be it's real informal, okay? And this is for you guys, okay? So feel free to ask as we go along. If we do get sidetracked on one subject for too long, we'll just have a follow-up conversation to give you more detail. This really is an overview of all the different activities that we do at OPPD. So I want to thank you all for being here. What I thought is I'd share with you today why OPPD invests in sustainability, how we invest in sustainability, and then what some of those efforts are. For example, renewable energy, electric vehicles, energy efficiency, recycling, process improvement. We also look at things of just being aware. How can all of us work more effectively, more efficiently on a daily basis? So kind of putting that in perspective, is there anything related to sustainability that you would like in addition to those topics? Anything that you can think of? Okay, so as we go forward, feel free to speak up. There are seats in the front. There always are those. So anyway, going forward, kind of give you that overview of why does OPPD invest and how do we do that with regards to sustainability. And we really look at it from the perspective of technology. We look at it as a perspective of recycling, reusing, renewables, process improvement, and one of the big things, and that's with all of you in this room, people outside of the room, is really working together, partnering, so that we can use those dollars and optimize the investment and the return on those investments to meet all of our needs. And that gets into those customer programs. And so I'm going to share those with you at the end and how it can impact you going forward. So if that sounds all right with everybody, it's about 30 or 40 minutes of this discussion, and then we have some time for questions afterwards. And as Judy has pointed out, she does have snacks. She found out I work for chocolate, and that's why I'm here. With that, one of the things that is always of interest to me, and for everybody in the room, is everybody's view of sustainability can be a little bit different. So I thought, as a part of engagement, and I know you're on your edge of your seat wanting to share your opinion, what do you see as a definition of sustainability? And I do have a few bribes. It's not as good as the chocolate. And if that doesn't work, then I'll do the old-fashioned teacher point out will you respond. Because I can tell Graham really wants to respond right now because he's chewing his gum really hard. So Graham, what does sustainability mean to you?
Preserving our natural resources for future generations.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Do you have a perspective? Recycle? What does it mean? I know you had mentioned earlier in the back row that the wind was of importance to you and just understanding some of the renewables and things like that. Your perspective?
Actually, the first description I heard,
It just in a big, I'm sorry.
The only way to save the earth.
The only way to save the earth. And the videotaping.
efficiency, smart grid, on-site, renewable generation.
Okay, so one of the things, and this is where we're partnering with the Energy Office, is to try to make all of us think about what we're doing in our daily lives. Okay, and a lot of times it's a subconscious perspective. And so as a part of that, I'm going to pass these around. I mean, if they're of something that will help you, it's like the trigger on the refrigerator to say, I really don't need that extra dessert. Shut off that light. It's just a psychological thing. I'm going to pass these around to be an Energy Star. So feel free, I won't be offended if you don't take them and you decide you're going to have the chocolate instead. With that perspective, you know, what's interesting on the web, and this is where I always ground it, because to your point, there's a lot of different definitions, and sometimes people can get caught up and make it a lot more complicated than it needs to, but it really is just making good choices, using our resources wisely. And then if you go out to Wikipedia, which of course, for all of us, is the essence of every good definition on the planet. Everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends indirectly or independently on the natural environment, which is kind of what Graham was saying. Of course, they have to make it somewhat more complex. And then I think a lot of us heard a lot of marketing dealing with green, right? And everything was green. And so in essence, some of the different choices is A, B, and occasionally C. Because I think we've all seen that it's sometimes, you know, we talk about green, but it's really more of a marketing plan than an actual essence. So what I want to share with you really today talks about sustainability and why as a utility we're focusing on it. And it gets back to you guys, okay? It's bringing value to you because we work for you. And that value really is making good short and long-term decisions. It's how it impacts us today and in the future. As a part of that, a couple things is process improvement, looking at how we're doing things and being more effective. The other thing I want to share with you is really that risk factor. Okay, and as an electric utility, one of the things that all of you, I'm assuming in the room, really want is when you flip on that light switch or turn on your air conditioner, that you have the energy to do so. It's very important to all of us. We know we were just talking about internationally how some countries really have a lot of challenge with that, and they can flip on the switch and they don't always have it. We, as a public utility, base our generation and the amount that we purchase and bill based on the day in which our customers use the most energy. Okay, and we refer to that as the peak day. So we design everything backwards from the peak day. To give you a perspective, a power plant could be $100 million. And that peak that it needs could be 20 to 40 hours a year. That's it. So you're looking at a $100 million investment for 20 to 40 hours a year. So if we can impact that peak and reduce the peak, we don't need new generation, we can all save money, and it's a good thing for everybody. And so one of the things I want to share with you at the end of this discussion when it looks at customer programs is how you can help us reduce that peak. And one of them is a program that we call the Air Conditioning Management Program, in which we'll actually pay you $50 the first year and $20 the years after for you to help us so that we can then vary the usage during that time. And this is Jamie Snyder, and she is going to help. I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself. So she is going to help with that aspect. The other thing then also is we were talking about, oh, okay, okay. She's so intuitive. One of the things that in mitigating risk really is to have a diverse portfolio. Because we want, at any time that you want to flip that switch, to have those opportunities. I think a lot of us have seen changes in fuel prices, oil prices, natural gas prices. I think some of us that were cognizant of the market, if you look back 5 to 10 years, those prices were $12 a unit. Now they're $4 or $5. Solar and wind were, up to $10 a unit. Now they're down in the $2 to $3 a unit. Nuclear prices have gone up. So when you start looking at your portfolio of things that you're offering, the key really is to have it diversified. So it's a balance. So if you have other things outside in the market that impacts those prices, you as our customers have more of a level balanced playing field. So that's really our goal and when we're trying to diversify. So when you look at that going forward, it gets back to our primary mission. Who we are, what we're trying to do is to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services to you, our customers. So that's a precedent of why, the foundation of all the decisions as we go forward. So who do we serve? Well, we have over 300,000 customers in the meters, which basically means about 750,000 people that we serve in, I want to make sure I get this right, 70 or 47 towns. I keep converting that. It's a little different, 47, 74. And here's another interesting thing. So all of you, as you talked about, what can we do, what can we make a difference? But hold on, look at your utility bill. And the average person looks at their utility bill, they said under 4 minutes a year. 4 minutes. That's the average person. The average person uses about 11,600 megawatt hours per year. So roughly about 1,100 per month. Summer, of course, is higher, spring, fall, less because you're opening your windows. But it gives you a perspective and a comparison on your perspective of what you might be able to save. Just to give you a perspective, then, our customers use 14 million megawatt hours and had a system peak of 2,400 megawatts last year. So it gives you a perspective of who we're serving and how much. So I talked to you earlier about why OPPD is investing in sustainability. Now, how do we invest? Well, we look at technology. So from a technology perspective, we look at recycling, we use perspectives, we look at partnerships. We really look at things that create value and increase productivity. So one of the things, and I think I shared with you, and there's a couple of reports back there. So annually we put this out. It's a 2012 report. It gives you a synopsis of some of the different efforts within our own organization. Because one of the focuses over the last 6 years is to basically walk our own talk. We're improving our own facilities. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And that's in that report. The other thing that might be of interest that we also put together is as a state of Nebraska in 2011, because the data always lags, we put together this report. So it'll give you kind of a snapshot of everything that was going on within the state at the time. And so it's kind of a good overview too. So help yourself to that report in the back. So going forward, one of the things that we have done internally really is using that technology. So first we did it from the perspective of an infrastructure. So one of the things I really want to kind of share with you is the Platinum LEED Omaha Center. And what's really cool about that is when we opened it in April 2011, we were one of 3 in the state. And we have a lot of things in that building that's just a cool thing. And we have ground loop heat pumps combined with the solar thermal technology. We have solar panels, wind turbine, which unfortunately within, I think it was a month or 2 getting online, we had the worst hailstorm Nebraska's had in a long time and caused $1 million of damage between the solar and the wind turbine. So that was kind of a bummer, to be honest with you. We had low VOC paint and flooring white roof to reflect heat, stormwater control and retention, recycled and local construction materials, and water efficient fixtures. So that facility, we have different times when we have offered tours. Green Omaha Coalition is one. If you have an organization that is of an interest, that's where you would see Judy as well, because we are very proud of the work of the facility, and we do want to show it off.
Is that your main facility now at the airport?
Yes. It's the Omaha Center, and so that's where the linemen and some of those work with their different trucks. The other thing that we want to share with you is energy efficiency. So as I shared with you earlier, we wanted to walk our own talk. We wanted to go back through our facilities and find where could we make better choices. We looked at servers, we looked at computers, we put in where printers would automatically default to double-sided printing. We put in where your screen automatically would shut down. We did some really creative things through our green team. And as a part of that, then also, we went through our buildings. We updated our lighting. We went through our HVAC, our heating and air conditioning system, and really did some things creatively to reduce overall our usage, which we did in most of the office buildings by over 10%. So that was our goal there. We also did a street light pilot with LEDs. And then another interesting thing that gets into more on the line side is we put in capacitors. And what the capacitors really did is decrease line loss. So between the plant, the generation plant, and your home, we had less loss. And so it was a very good investment because then obviously the return on the investment is higher. We also then looked at standardizing on electric vehicles, and hybrids now are our standard for all new fleet vehicles. We have 36 of them. We also have a bucket truck, and then we have a Chevy Volt. The Chevy Volt we actually track and monitor, and it's getting about 110 miles per gallon. So it's great. It's very quiet, which to some people makes them nervous, but it's a good thing. So the other way in which we're being more effective is in the way we operate. Because sustainability really looks at how do we use our resources wisely, right? So it's a people resource as well. Process improvement, using video conferencing instead of driving back and forth. Obviously, we participate in so many Earth Day celebrations. We even had it internal. It's been a good thing because it's communicating and sharing how can all of us contribute and really make a difference. Because that's why all of you are here, right? You want to learn, you want to make a difference. The other thing we did is being more conscientious about where we put our poles and power poles and things like that. And the other thing that actually I'm going to tap on Russ a little bit in the back is we were looking at, in our plants, how to use dry sorbent. And Russ, you want to just add like a couple seconds on that and kind of give them a perspective?
Well, one of the things I think traditionally, not to kind of get down into the weeds too much on technology, but for reducing sulfur dioxide emissions, SO2, or what some have, some of you may have seen that causes like acid rain, SO2, and it combines with water vapor and it makes sulfuric acid, right? So there was big issues with that in the 80s and that. So typically, there's huge expenses that a utility would need to expend to try to reduce sulfur dioxide emissions, and you put in what they call a scrubber, which is basically a big piece of machinery where you inject the material into it, it kind of transforms and removes the sulfur dioxide, and it comes out in the form of ash. It's been around for decades. It's a tried and true technology, but they're very, very expensive. And what we have found in recent years is a lot of innovation where we're trying different kinds of materials that you can do absent the huge capital investment that you would need to make, and you're able to get the same kinds or comparable reductions in sulfur dioxide, and it's in the form of dry sorbent injection. And believe it or not, it's as simple of a technology as taking baking soda and basically injecting it directly into the gases that are coming out, and then collecting, the material, the baking soda, and collecting that material, and that will collect the SO2. And so we've been doing over the last a little over a year, trying some of those pilot projects at our power plants to see how those will work, and they look like they're very effective. So again, we can reduce the cost and still get the same kinds of reductions by doing something that's maybe a little bit out of the box thinking. Yes, sir.
Is this something you do on your own? Do you conduct your own research, or do you
You know, I sure wish I could take credit for thinking up some of these ideas, but the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of research labs. Department of Energy has a lot of labs. Exactly, where they're doing tests in a laboratory, and then what they look to do is try to take it out and try it on a commercial power plant. And so what we would then do is we take that idea of doing it, work with others that can help us to kind of formulate the plan, because we don't have all the resources to do that, and then we'll do a pilot project at one of our plants and do it that way.
Does it reduce the mercury rates?
Not so good of a retention on the mercury. Again, a lot of these are very targeted type of chemical reactions that you're looking for. So in this case, not so much. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I know about scrubbers. I've
Okay.
worked at OPPD about doing scrubbers in the past.
Okay.
And OPPD board members. I visualized the scrubbers are like on top. You know, that what you're doing is scrubbing like what comes out of the building, the products that are going in the air that are causing
Sure.
gas and all that stuff. Anyway, so how would you do the dry? I think maybe sprinkling like baking soda on top of the building, or how do you do that?
Yeah, well,
I'm just
no,
kind of visualizing it.
what you basically do is, instead of taking that whole gas and running it through a very complex piece of machinery, what we're able to do is actually some of our duct work. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but obviously these gases that are created from combusting coal, right, are then going to travel, and they'll go through a variety of different types of other kinds of equipment, right?
Before they go outside.
Right, but it's going to go basically through one of the like HVAC ducts, but in a very huge scale for a commercial power plant. So you've got all this air with, you know, with all the flue gas going through it, and then what we do is we put in like little spears that go in, and you inject it directly into there. You don't take it and divert it into a big piece of machinery. You kind of treat it right in place. Would be, I mean, I'm very simplifying that, but if you understand scrubbers, you got to build a big scrubber, and then you got to divert everything to go through the scrubber and all the material that's doing that. Well, in a sorbent injection, you're basically putting it into the flue gas, and then you're going to collect it just like you would normally collect, without having to have all the extra expense and capital for that. Oversimplified a lot, but I make my point. So.
Okay, thank you, Russ. And if somebody has questions, Russ will be here after the presentation too, right, Russ?
Till 6 o'clock.
Okay, so you got 10 minutes.
I'm joking.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay, so, okay, as a part of that then, it also puts into, as you were bringing up earlier, recycling. Recycling, reusing, really maximizing some of these opportunities. And you look at it from 2012 and then also from the last couple of years. One of the things that we're going to be adding to this, and we're excited about in a contract from 2013, is we're going to do more scrap metal things. So we're going to be able to look at stainless steel, aluminum, copper, and iron. So we'll be adding to this list. And to give you a perspective, since 2009, OPPD has participated in co-mingling, which makes everybody's life easier as they throw in, different kinds of paper and cardboard. So the amount of people that participated in that went up, and we were able to divert, in 2012 alone, 90 tons of waste from the landfill. So if any of you at your jobs would recommend commingling, it really came in, it was very much helpful because people didn't have to have this challenge of, is it recyclable, is it not? We also stuck stickers on it that said, you can put that in this can, you can put that in that can, and it made life a lot easier.
Is this thing kind of just an OPPD
Yeah.
approved or recycled?
Yep. And so it gives you a perspective. I mean, when you think about it, we do have 2,200 employees, and if all of us could come around and do things, just one or two things differently, we can make a difference. And that's what it's all about. All of us in the room can make a difference. We just have to be aware and make different choices. The other thing that's interesting is we recycle 40 tons of paper. So another thing that people take for granted. And then in the last year, we also, the last 3 years, recycled over 440,000 tons of fly ash and bottom ash. So it's looking at things a little differently. We've been working with our transportation department, and so they expanded their use of soy-based hydraulic fluid in our construction equipment. And they also have used ethanol and biodiesel fuel in certain vehicles since '93. So once again, it's looking at what do we do on a daily basis and how do we make it?
Denise, the fly ash that you're recycling, is all of that going into concrete, or is there some other use?
I'm going to, once again, Russ, do you want to respond to that? Most of it is, but I
No,
really
primarily
have no
it's going into concrete, although, so we're talking here on fly ash, right?
Yeah.
That is fly ash. So we got fly ash and bottom ash, and the bottom ash that we collect we're making asphalt, and also some fill material. But fly ash predominantly is going for concrete and being used by department roads.
And how would you differentiate between fly ash and bottom ash?
Fly ash is the ash that would come with combustion and would carry over into the flue gas and would come out as stack. Okay, so that would be a fly ash type of a pathway. Bottom ash is going to get collected in the boiler and it's going to come out on the bottom. And bottom ash is like slag. It's going to be still dark. It's going to have carbon in it, and it's going to be kind of a molten, almost like a magma, lava-looking kind of stuff that will break into smaller pieces or bigger pieces, but it can be used in asphalt. The fly ash will come out, it's very light, it's very powdery. However, when put together, it actually will form up, even absent any mortar mix, it will form up like a concrete, very, very solidly too.
I think we're running those questions. Oh, there's two questions, Brandon.
I just was curious, I know the federal government, now we don't have one, but was considering making a ruling on fly ash and on ash, and I'm just wondering how would that affect OPPD, and would it cost you more just to take it to the dump? Or?
Well, it would depend. Right now it's being regulated by the states via permits as a non-hazardous waste.
Right.
So it's treated much like a regular landfill would be, that you'd be familiar with. But because of 2008, the Kingston, Tennessee Valley Authority coal ash accident, where they had basically the side of an embankment give way, they had all this liquid, kind of sludgy, ashy stuff that wasn't being managed properly, that then fell down into a community. Big debate: is it hazardous? Is it non-hazardous? And so one of the things that the federal government's looking at right now is whether or not to regulate that as hazardous or non-hazardous. Depending on how that rule could possibly look like, it could have impact on us. If it was regulated as hazardous, I think I would be pretty safe to say that the recycling would go away immediately, right? Nobody's going to recycle something that's, now been characterized as a hazardous waste. If it stays as non-hazardous, then we'd have an opportunity to be able to reuse that and use it in concrete mix. So the jury's still out on that, Laverne, is what I would say on that. But we're prepared to be compliant regardless of what the regulation says we need to do.
I think
Graham.
Two quick questions. First one, are you selling that to a local cement maker or an asphalt? Who's getting that? Is it somebody local?
We have a contract with a local marketer, who actually then markets that out. So kind of be a third party is the way that's performing.
And then, it's been on my mind, did the flood affect where the storage of gas is at?
No, and I appreciate that you bring that up. One of the wonderful things that we were able to do, and we got permission from the state of Nebraska to do this during the flood, and particularly at Nebraska City Station, we were able to take that ash and we actually used that to help bolster some of the levees that we had around our facility to protect our facility. So we worked with the Corps of Engineers because they've got regulatory authority over the levees. We worked with the state of Nebraska. We worked with the local floodplain management managers, and we were able to actually take that ash and then use it and help protect our power plant. And then after the flood waters had receded, we took that ash and we reclaimed it, put it back on the pile. And so if you go to Nebraska City Station right now, you won't see any extra levees that were built or anything that we did to help protect our power plants there. So it actually worked out really, really well for us in that instance. We also used it to help with our rail, because one of the things that we were afraid of is that we would lose our fuel supply coming in via rail. And we actually had to raise our rails up by our Nebraska City Station. We were able to use some of that material for
back to the back, the slide you just finished, might have missed this, but how are you recycling batteries? What batteries are you recycling, I should say?
No, I'm not sure.
Because I had a really hard time where I was working, it was really
Right.
hard trying to.
I know we have.
You know, all the Excite batteries and the big batteries, the people that are supplying those batteries, we've got in the contracts that we have with them that will do one-for-one swaps. For things like mobile phones, radios, 800 megahertz radios and that, you get a lot of little small batteries. And so what we have are battery collection boxes, and we've got contracts that are set up. We collect all of those batteries in centralized locations at all of our different facilities. And then those batteries then are returned back through proper recycling companies that do that. Yeah,
And just to interrupt, I wanted to go back to something she said earlier, which was you reduce line loss. And I was wondering, what did you do to reduce line loss? Because I know most of the energy is lost in the lines, and so I'm just curious.
That's the capacitors. What we did, and we're calling them green capacitors, but basically we put capacitors on our lines on some of the choice network circuits. And what it did is it basically let us control that a little bit more, so it dropped the overall line loss in those areas. And I can get you more information on that, on how much we saved. We saved a bunch on energy. Not so much on demand, but obviously on the energy. So we were able to deliver more.
And you do have percentages of what you saved?
I don't have it with me, but I can, if you want to follow up with me, I can get it. It's back at the office. Should have brought that. Yes.
Where the batteries, small batteries, are also talking about, are they like your alkaline, double A's, A's, C's, D's?
all of the
Yes.
above, nine
Yeah.
ads, all of that.
Okay, and is there somewhere on your website where you talk about collection points? I didn't even know about
I
it.
think it's more internal.
Well, yeah, these are for internal use batteries, so this isn't something that we would be
Yeah,
looking from.
yeah. So we're paying somebody to take it.
Drop all my D's.
Right, I understand,
Yeah.
I'm sure you would, I mean, many people would. No, these are internal to OPPD, this is
Okay.
what we're doing to recycle products and that we have in our using.
Yeah, because I was told like under this kitchen sink, folks, alkaline should be fixed.
Right. Well, you can as a consumer, you can do that, they're not regulated. The rules get kind of different though for businesses when you're generating that, right? So a lot of things that you could throw away with small amounts. I mean, if you're using pesticides and herbicides and you're using batteries at home and you're throwing them in regular trash, it's totally lawful to do that. It's non-regulated for residential owners to do that. On the commercial, industrial, business side of it, you can't do that. You got to collect them and they have to be processed. But of course, we're collecting many, many more than you're ever going to dream to do with your house, you know, in any given year. So it makes sense.
Interstate battery collects them, they're gonna drop off, they say, oh, thank you.
Yep.
I've been told they throw them away.
Is regular price on bad, the piece will take?
Everything, and it's not just, yeah, put them there, oh, thank you.
Good, good.
Did you have something to add?
I just been told that they just throw them away, that Staples actually recycles it, or safely gets rid of them. That's what I've been told, like, because I was thinking that too.
So that's a good question to ask. I'm just not sure. Anything else on this?
Let me just add, we do not send ours to somebody who would go and turn around and just throw them out in the back either. And I say that with all seriousness. One of the things, when we set up a relationship with a contractor that's going to dispose of any kind of material out of OPPD, we do more or less a background check on them. We're checking their compliance history, we're checking their financial integrity to make sure that they have enough financial wherewithal that if they mishandle or mismanage material, that they're going to be stuck with that liability. So we do not enter into relationships and look for Staples and hand them things and then find out that they're throwing them out in the regular trash in the back door. We follow up with that.
I was thinking about us regular people that aren't, just.
No, I agree, but I thought it was important that I make that point though too, that is something that we actually do. We follow proper due diligence to make sure that we're checking that. So.
Lithium batteries, like in laptops, that's in the street.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of really nasty, batteries. That's the other side of the equation, right? You can do a lot of wonderful things storing energy in batteries and that, but then you're going to have to do something with that battery material. material at the end of its life. To be as bad or worse than maybe some of the things you're trying to control as they want.
This slide is, it talks about renewable and wind. Wind is our predominant one here in Omaha, or not in Omaha, but at OPPD. And this is kind of the wind map of the state, okay? And as you can see, the blue ones are those that are in function right now. The yellow ones are in construction. The ones with the kind of funky start are the ones that we're associated with. Right now, OPPD is associated with 65% of the wind in the state, okay? And that is the committed and the ones that we have right now. And as a part of that, it's 420 megawatt hours that is committed by OPPD. And our initial goal was 10% by 2020, okay? We have already met that based on these commitments. And I can't say a lot about this, but tomorrow in our board meeting, we are going to propose that we add another 400 megawatts, which would put us, we're asking for a commitment, not just the goal, but the commitment to have a signed contract in hand going forward for those 400 megawatts, which would basically constitute, based on our load forecast, about 29% of our retail energy in 2020. So it's a sizable amount. It's going to be as large. The only other state that is that large is Hawaii. And of course, it's not a state, but we do have, there's a few other utilities that are in the 30% mark. We're talking to them about adding that extra percent and then coming up with whether it's some solar projects or some more with methane gas or other kinds of renewable projects, biomass or whatnot. That's really our goal, and we're trying to really push that going forward.
Do you have a comparison to like Iowa? We travel a lot through Iowa, and it looks like their wind farms are just so far ahead of any of our surrounding neighboring states. I counted something like on the order of 404 turbines up here. It's probably just Interstate 8 in Iowa.
I do have, not, once again, not with me, but if you contact me, most of that in Iowa is Mid-America, and I do have their numbers, and they are in the 35%, I think, committed right now, 35 or 30, they might even be 39. So I can get you that information. And one of their benefits that they have that we don't have is we're public power, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have federal taxes. And with that, they get a tax break, the production tax credit that they personally, or as a company, get the benefit of. We have to hire a third party that gets the production tax credit, so then they also get, some benefit themselves, so some profit for being that third party in order for us to have any kind of benefit from that. So we kind of have to go to a markup of a markup in order for us to participate and actually get some advantage of the pricing. But if we could do it direct, it obviously has a much greater impact. And that's why they penetrated Iowa so much, because for them it's a good financial investment. For us, it's still a good one, but for them it's a really good one. Sorry.
As a nonprofit, there was in the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of nonprofit money trying to build renewables and efficiency and this kind of thing. How are you not able to access nonprofit money that's being also put up? I mean, there was $1 billion fund set up just to do renewables.
So if you're talking about nonprofit, are you talking about stimulus funds and grants?
No, just in the nonprofit sector. Get out of government, get out of that. You are a nonprofit as a public utility.
I don't think we're an official nonprofit. We have applied for grants through the DOE and the stimulus. We did so for Smart Grid. We applied for a lot of those stimulus money. Unfortunately, Nebraska wasn't one that was awarded a lot of the federal grant money.
I guess what I'm asking, have you ever applied to other nonprofits that are distributing those funds?
See, I don't
in the nonprofit sector, without government, without any of that.
We have applied for foundation money. We have applied for public power funds that have been on different grants. I was just meeting with our grant writer on Monday to look at, we were hoping that there would be some solar so that we could maybe do a community garden and have some of that offset by being a study specific to Nebraska. And this last year, once that stimulus money was kind of used up, we haven't seen a lot of movement in those areas. But she's looking for me. She's on a bunch of search engines, and she's got attuned to foundation money. We work with Keep Omaha Beautiful. We're working with Green Omaha Coalition, different partnerships to try to find the right one. And I don't want to burst my bubbles because solar is the next one. But that's part of our struggle is wind has come down because we're in a state where we are very windy, okay? And all of us have, as estates and environments, we have different resources available to us. In Nebraska, we are the plains. There's a reason they're calling us the plains, is because my counterparts across the U.S., when they get 35% out of a wind farm, they're ecstatic, okay? That's kind of the national average. We're getting over 50%, okay? Part of which is because now wind towers, because of the investment of ARA funds and some of the other technologies out there, they're going higher. They can reach other winds. Their blades are getting designed better. So we're able to really grab more of that wind that was out there than before. At the same time, so if you think of it over 50% on the solar side, and technology's improved. So it was a capacity factor. And what that basically means is how often can you change that energy into something you can use. So the capacity factor for us on say, a nuclear plant is 90% of the time you turn it on, it's ready. If you turn it on for a wind farm in Nebraska, it's 56%. If you look at it from a perspective of solar, it's only 18%. Now, it is at partial peak time, and depending on how you position the solar panels, you can get more or less. The challenge is, if the customer gets more energy, it's further away from our peak. Our peak is from 4 to 7, because people are coming on, they're coming home, they're like, hey, we want to turn on our air conditioners, we've had our thermostats on, and really the peak in Nebraska is, from about 12 to 4, it's not quite that, but it basically peaks and then kind of ramps off. So there's still opportunities there. It's about 18% of the time, so cash flow, it just hasn't been in our favor without having some incentive that goes with it. But we're going to continue. It's something we really want to do. We just haven't come up with the right value. And when you have some of the wind prices that we have been fortunate to get, it's a hard one to compete against right now. But we're going to make it happen. Just hang in there. 6 years ago, we had one wind tower. So, we've got to take it one step at a time, right?
Back to wind, as you were saying,
Yeah.
I may not be up to date on my information. Isn't there a state law that says 10% of the wind energy has to be sold within the state and 80% has to be exported?
No.
Where am I going wrong? Because there was a state statute or something.
It wasn't to that extent. What it said is, okay, the local utilities had the right to a refusal first for wind farms. And you had to have a local utility that would purchase at least 10%, okay? And then you could export the rest if you were, say, a Entergy or a private company. So that's where it came around. What has happened, though, is most of them to the date that I know of hasn't been doing export. They've been selling it to the local utilities.
So the capacity that you're showing here and plus others is being utilized within the state.
Right.
Who owns the wind farms?
It depends on, because of that production tax credit in the federal, we actually have to purchase it from a contractor. So companies like Third Planet, Entergy, they're the ones that own those, and then we purchase it from them. And we go into 20, 25-year agreements. They're called power purchase agreements. Anything else? But from, this is a big, like I said, please keep in mind, 6 years ago we started this joint, we had one wind tower at Belmont, and it was getting basically 26% or 22% capacity factor. We've come a long way, and it's because of all of you. Please continue to support us. We're trying to do what makes economic sense, because even though you're here supporting this, we also have a group of people that might not think it's so cool. I can't believe it, but hey. So with that said, we hear what you're saying on this, and here's where you can really help. Green power. So why should you participate? you know, this supports renewable energy. This says to the people, these people are interested in OPPD making further investments in renewable energy. Now, how do you do that? You can sign up at OPPD.com. There's 4 levels. Number of participants right now is less than 0.2%. So if you in this room are saying, hey, we really are interested, and there's so many people out there that's interested in renewables, we need to start showing that for other people so that we know that this is the right direction to go into. Yeah.
I had somebody at work tell me that they were participating in it, but they didn't seem to know where the money was going, so they stopped participating in it.
Well, but keep in
So
mind.
where is the money going, possibly? And
Right, so it goes to our general fund, and our general fund pays for the wind. And if you think about it, so say you have 5,000 people and they pay, just to make my life easier on math, $100 a month, or $100 a year. So, okay, I'm already not gonna make it, but $5 million, is that right? I might need some more chocolate. But anyway, basically $5 million. Our wind prices per year is probably more like $50 to $100 million. Okay? So even if you have everybody maxed out on this and participating, it's only a blip on what the total cost is, really.
But at the beginning of this, you said the prices have come down into competitive region. You're now signing 20-year contracts because they're extremely competitive prices. Why in the hell would I need to donate when it's already a good business idea for you to invest?
Well, the idea is there's a lot of different paths that we can make good business decisions. Wind is one of them, okay? Keep in mind that any of the wind deals we had that started out when it was before, it actually cost us more than almost all of our other generation sources. So our earlier contracts were not a smashing good deal. We did it because it was the right thing to do. And now we're in 20-year agreements with those that became that. And as the rate goes down, now as a balance, the portfolio looks good. So it is have a financial balance, but at the same time, there's other choices that would be just as good of a choice. But OPPD is saying, hey, going forward, we have a balanced portfolio, this is one piece of it, and the more people that are saying this is important to them, we're hearing you, and we want to go forward with it. Yeah.
You know, one of the things, we've heard those criticisms on the Green Power program, right? Different states, different utilities administer it differently. There are many programs like this across the United States. One of the things we are looking at real close is how can we tailor that maybe differently to address some of those issues that have been brought up, and how to maybe tailor it, make it more unique for you as the individual when you're going to contribute. You want to have some definitive.
Yeah, something visible, you know.
Something
like,
that's visible.
oh, I got a smart grid on my house.
And there are ways of doing that with rates. There are ways of doing some other things. We're kind of looking at all of that.
Maybe help with insulating homes, or you know, improving business structures, which would improve the capital, which would make everybody wealthier.
Right, and as Denise talked about, a lot of the energy efficiency programs and things that we've done, looking at all of that to try to keep it contemporary with with changing times that we have right now. So I guess I'm not promising that you're going to see anything tomorrow or by the end of the year. But one of the things that we are assessing is how to do that, and part of it is because of the price of those, some of the renewables, that margin now is less. There might be some different ways to offer incentives, or maybe just to let people tailor the money that they're paying directly to some of those particular initiatives or projects.
It would seem more sensible, instead of putting up a big solar array, losing 80 to 90% of the energy trying to deliver it to us, putting that solar array on the building that's going to use it, or on the factory, or on the business, and start doing more on-site generation. I don't think you have any on-site commercial generation, do you?
What do you mean? We have some.
Well, like a factory comes in, and you, instead of putting another megawatts on your coal plants, put a power plant at the coal plant, or at the manufacturer.
Right.
There's nothing limiting people to not do that choice. It's just not as cost effective, since we're public power and the rates are lower. Unlike California, that they've been able to cost justify that. We do have some at, to your point, at Creighton, and that's because they got a DOE grant.
Right.
We have some on our own facilities. It's gonna be there. It's just not quite there now, but it's moving there.
Are there some restrictions legally for net metering in Nebraska, comes to Iowa, which they can buy back that surplus energy produced by, say, a farm that has their own generator?
Well, I don't know if there's limitations per se. They have different ways in which they buy it back.
Yeah.
So there's a net metering policy. If you go online at OPPD.com, we have an
That's
official
fairly
policy.
vigorous, and they want to change that regulations in the last 5 years.
It would be in the last 5 years. Yeah, and because before, we just didn't have anybody that was interested in it. And of course, as the technology's gotten better, and ARA funds helped with that, because it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. As more people are out there, the technology gets developed, there's more interest. And so there is difference. Each state can do it differently. Each utility can do it differently.
And in OPPD's defense, if you needed it, the net metering has been very easy for the people who have sought to get it and to connect. And it's been not a difficult process, so I'm grateful that it's that way. Back to the solar panels. So right now you've got a station on 36th Street just to the north of it's south of Harrison, yes. And at that station, there's a long sloping hill underneath it where the power lines run. I don't know if OPPD has just the access rights, but are you planning in the future when the prices for the solar panels go even down? That would be a wonderful site with wide open sun and access that's likely not to be built on, particularly in the floodplain part of it at the lower end. And you've got all the highline capacity. If everything is set up, it would be ideal at that site, it seems.
I can't tell you because we haven't done a specific study at that site.
No.
All I can share with you is it gets more and more cost effective. We are looking at it. I mean, we're looking at it all the time.
When you own the land, when you own the transmission
Yeah.
lines, you don't have to do any of those things. It just seems like it would be ideal.
Right, and what Councilman Price you're talking about is our Sark County station that's off of 36th Street that we have there. And it does, it has a really nice hill that goes off on the western side and you get over towards the south a little bit. That could be good. Sky's the limit. I mean, we're looking at a lot of opportunities to try to integrate some of those kind of pilot projects into it. I can't say for, that we look specifically at Sarpy to try to apply that. That's a great idea. I'll take that back to the office for sure. Bring that up. It hasn't been thought of before.
Several years ago, at a meeting similar to this, I asked about implementation of green power at that point, and one of the answers I got back from an OPPD person was the fact that there was so much bond money or so much money tied up into existing capacity, like coal flour,
Cold flour.
Thank you.
Yes.
I need some chocolate.
Yes.
Or nuclear at that point. And you're phasing in green power by such date, so much percentage. Are you phasing out that overall 50-year plan or 100-year plan? Coal producing capacity, bringing in green power, and setting nuclear where it is today?
I'm not sure if I've got your question, but what I can share with you is, as with any company, you're always looking at what are the opportunities. Where should you go different? Because things change, right? 5 years ago, you couldn't take a wind tower up as high and get that kind of response. So we're always looking at what the best mix is and what the best generation mix is. We'll have an integrated resource plan. We had one published last year. I think it was a year, so it's 2011, because we're a year in arrears on, I think, the program title. But anyway, every couple of years, we look at that, and so that's a public document, and so you can see what that direction is. It forecasts not 50 years, but 20 years.
Okay, because like, how long will that plant on the river out here last? Life expectancy of those coal power plants.
Go ahead, Russ.
So again, that's a $64,000 question, and that's one of the things that we're really trying very hard to plot what the future of OPPD is going to look like. The wind and the wind purchases that we've entered into this year we've got to blend that into that integrated resource plan. And as Denise said, the plan is public, it's required by law to be published every 5 years. We actually publish it every year. And so it's kind of a condensed version is what you would find for 2013 earlier this year that was posted out there. But that's one of the things that we're trying to come to terms with. There are a lot of regulations that are impacting the utility industry and specifically on the coal-fired generation, right? As many of you, as I look around the room and recognize many of the faces, many of you know that there's a lot of pressures on utilities to reduce or eliminate coal-fired generation. We're looking at that real hard. And one of the things that drives us maybe to having less coal would be kind of the regulatory environment that we're going to face and the kind of expenses that we're going to need to make. So we're trying to balance all of that. And actually right now, OPPD is working through and trying to determine what that future is going to look like. So hopefully in the next several months, we will have, I think, what would be a unified kind of trajectory for where OPPD is going to go with all of our baseload operating. That'll take into consideration wind, that'll take into consideration some of the things that are going on. It's a very complex process, and you're making investment decisions that are going to have to sustain 50 years, 40 years, and you're making decisions about power production that you've had for a long time as well. So trying to come to terms with how to do that, how to integrate with transmission, and all of that is really complex. And so we've been working through that. And it takes time, and I know many of you are not satisfied with the speed, maybe at which the decision making works. But all I can tell you is we want to make sure we do it right. So it's taking a little bit of time.
And a lot of spreadsheets. Yes.
You talked a lot about terms, but the membrane capacity and the technology of thin membrane systems for solar seems to have really driven the price down to make it far more competitive than it was a couple of years ago. Some of the plants even were out of business. The Notorious one was going on to hold on, Banco. But anyway, my question is, where does that fit in ratio-wise to wind?
You mean, what's the
Is
percentage
solar
going
going
to be?
to take, is solar going to take a bigger piece of the generation pie?
You know, I'm going to
Speculate.
SEPA next week, which is a solar conference. So ask me next week. But in all fairness,
Same time, same place?
yeah.
Okay.
There's been a lot of, and all of this is extrapolation of educated guesses, right? Based on trends, based on information. They're believing in Nebraska solar will hit parity, which means it's cost effective in 2015 or 16. And that's assuming that it continues with the trends that it is now. So, you know, that's been the latest report. We just had a report from, anyway, NRAIL was going to help us pull that together to try to understand what maybe that capacity of Nebraska could be and how we could optimize it. And we have not got the final report on that, but that's what they told us early on, is that's what they believe is going to be the parity, and it's going to make sense for individuals to buy more than they are today. IKEA, you know, is offering that in the stores now, which puts it in a whole different mix. It's kind of like your programmable stats and stuff. And so, you know, it gets back to that chicken and the egg, you know, demand drives what people are going to sell. And it's kind of a circle. And we're trying to influence some of those purchases. At the same time, it's got to be cost effective for all our customers, right, across the board. Those that think it's a good idea and those that don't. And so we're trying just to, what Russ was saying, balance. So that kind of gives you a perspective of that. This is the other thing, and you're going to see revamped 474 on our website. I think everybody always tries to make it more user-friendly. There's a big effort right now where the first of the year you're going to see a new website. But go out there. They have spent a lot of time customizing tools so residential customers can go out and understand how their choices impacts their bills, okay, and how it impacts their usage. There's a lot of different tips out there. There's a lot of different perspectives. Go out there, check it out, and I'm going to kind of go into this at this point. These are some of the programs we have offered. And on the one side, it gets back to, you know, your bigger users, your commercial buildings, your industrial plants, of course, they use a lot. And so we're really working with them. If we can reduce their peak, even one of the big consumers can make a real big difference on whether we got to make that combustion turbine investment going forward. So that's a big deal on the commercial side. The other thing, you as individuals can help us reduce that peak. I shared with you about the ACMP program. You can go out on the website, you can enroll. Basically what we've done, we've had 3 pilots on it, so that including my house, with temperature adjustments, so we could make sure that we would optimize with the least amount of disruption to your comfort that we could do, and yet reduce that peak. After 3 summers, we've got it. We've got it down. So please register, like I said, as a part of that. You get $50 the first year, $20 for every year after, and you're helping reduce that peak and offset that need for generation. The other thing is, as she was sharing earlier, is the watt detectors. And some of the things I want to share with you, you know, is, I guess it's on my next screen actually, is we had 375 people check those out. You know, the beauty of watt detectors is you can understand where's the equipment that's really grabbing the most energy use, and be a little more conscientious of how you use it. The dryer, it's bad. Please don't use it at 4 p.m. on the hottest, most humid day of the summer. We really appreciate it. So getting to understand your own facility, your own building, your own home, and how you can help. Because if we want to keep prices down, if we want to keep costs down, it's up to us. And so just making that conscientious effort. And right now we have a big effort, it's down here in the corner, that talks about the stakeholder communication program. We've had over 100 different on-site sessions like we're talking here to ask people, what do you want? What do you want going forward? What's important to you? What do you find value in? Something might be important to you and you think it's a cool idea, but if you say, hey, we really don't want to pay for it, then, I mean, we work for you, right? And so if it's not a good investment of your money, we don't want to make it. The other thing that we spend a lot of time in is technology. I think my son loops me on this, but the apps. A lot of people are really driven towards apps, and we're working on customizing things so that you can better understand what your usage are, and then the energy advisor. So the other aspect of it is how do we stretch that dollar, right? And to some of your points, that you're all in here and you're representing companies, you're representing organizations, really trying to work together to see what's our common objectives. What can we bring to the table and all of us help each other meet those common objectives? We worked, I know, with the Sierra Club at one time back when Cammie was here to do the CFL recycling. Green Omaha Coalition got formed with Cammie and the Sierra Club, and a lot of people that were in the room, and you can attest to that. It was basically the city and a lot of us, I think there was 14 organizations, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're still on the board, correct?
Right.
I retired after 3 years. And the treasurer and the 501c3 challenges of setting up a nonprofit. But if you want to just share, like real quick, what the Green Omaha Coalition, because this is another way what reaches out to the community that you can participate and be a part of that difference.
The Green Omaha Coalition brings together a lot of different organizations that are concerned about the environment, energy efficiency being one component of it, helps to sponsor the Earth Day activities that are going on at Elmwood Park, and takes an advocacy role in trying to encourage and move forward on sustainability throughout the metro area. It's composed of members like OPPD, MUD, so there's a business component, but I would say the majority of people are people representing organizations that have an even stronger bent for sustainability and that want to see more renewables and more movement that is actually taking place.
And because of that, we had green education with different sanctions. Construction, we had a public agency, and OPPD, what we try to do is work with the city, and we came up with a school-based education program in which over 8,000 of our students in the Omaha OPPD area received a kit similar to that along with the curriculum. Because I think all of us in the room understand that as a 5th grader, people are more open to change. As we get older, it's a little tougher, okay? I remember we also did an in-home monitor, and I used my poor family as a guinea pig. The big change in ACMP and the in-home monitor. And my kid at the time was 11 or 12, and the university student came by and installed it and said, you gotta be serious. When that light turns orange, you turn everything off. Well, that doesn't work when it's the middle of winter and mom is trying to get ready for work and he's now turned off all the lights on me, you know? But he was very engaged, and that's what we have to do. We're the part of making the difference if we're going forward, and we gotta work together to understand how do we maximize these investments and really make that difference. So what can we do here? All of us in the room. First of all, Tony has back there kits for you. Okay, so when you go and take those kits, install them in your home. These are to help tighten up the building envelope, help with, you know, most of you probably already have CFLs in there, but it's really trying to help people understand that it takes the little things to really make a difference, and if all of us in this room are making those little changes, we can really make a difference. So one of the aspects that is that wonderful thing, there is so much on the web. There's a lot of information on the web. So use the web and understand how that can impact you. Over 2,000 people have contacted our energy advisor, and he is always touching all of us for answering different questions. Use them and work with them. The other thing is the tools. Here's an interesting thing. So paperless billing for each of you. If you would do that, it's $6 per person per year savings. Right now we have 27,000 people that are on that paperless billing, and it saved you as a customer $430,000. If all of you do that over several years, can you imagine how much money that will add up to? Because that's less than 10% of our customers right now participating, and it's $400,000. So something to think about. Also, as I shared with you, the walk detectors, over 375 people have used them. And here's the interesting one. And if somebody's brave enough to really tell me, I do have, okay, in OPPD lens, a little treat. Okay? It's not as good as chocolate, but it'll work. Who all has programmable stats in the room? Okay, who all has them programmed? Okay, you're better than the average, because 90% of the people in the U.S. that have a programmable stat do not have them programmed. And let's see here. And I know you're just dying, so I'm going to pass this around, and you can help yourself to an LED or the one that everybody wants. Oh. That's going to be a downer. Okay. Just help yourself. There's a pin in there, too. Everybody needs a stress ball, right? Right? Okay.
I got over the microphone.
I know. Well, and there you go. There's also chocolate if you're saying, I don't like that. So anyway, so keep that in perspective. So help us get the word out. Programmable stats is one of the biggest users. I mean, you can really save a lot on your bill. She's shaking her head. Do you know how much you guys have saved on your bills? Considerably, though, right?
Yeah, you got one that's a little different than myself here, because ours you don't have to program it for winter or summer, it does it automatically.
Oh, that's nice.
Down to here, it's pretty deep, because one day you have air conditioning, you do it in 24-hour period, and you don't touch it.
See, there is so many things out there. So those that didn't raise your hand, and I won't say anything, but invest in a programmable stat. It really does make a difference. Program them, use them. It can make a big difference in your bill. The other thing is participate. There's programs out there. There's things that you can really make a difference with. We need your feedback, okay? As we do these different programs, we did refrigeration recycling, we did CFLs, we did school-based education. What, as the consumers, because this is your money, and we're trying to maximize that investment, where can we do that? What will maximize your investment to the greatest degree?
Do you ever look at that alone?
We do, and actually EIA, which is the Energy Information Agency, is a federal agency, they're forecasting that phantom load, you know, the battery chargers, the video games, is going to be 15 to 20% by 2020 is what they're forecasting. At the same time, then, we're also seeing some reports that are saying, well, as we're getting more efficient, it may not be as bad as what they thought. So, you know, we're watching it. We're talking about it, we're understanding. In fact, if you see, occasionally we'll send out a survey that says, what kind of equipment do you have? What are your habits? That's to help us load forecast and figure out how much are you going to use at the end of this year, at the end of 5 years. It just helps us. Like, how old is your air conditioner? How old is your heater? Those kind of things. So if you get a survey, if you could help us there, we'd really appreciate that as well.
How successful was the refrigerator program?
It was way successful.
Was it?
Yeah. In fact, we ran out of funds every year.
I
And
think
the
that's
same.
such a neat program, I just don't see much publicity about it anymore.
Well, that's because we ran out of funds. That's what. And there again, we had a grant through NDEQ to help us offset some of those costs, and it made it cost effective. We do have some thresholds, and so with the grant, we met the threshold. Without the grant, we didn't, and so that's why this year we're not offering it going into next year initially. But we have ran it for the last 3 years, and we'll be reassessing it next year. And then I think you had a question too.
Is it a phantom load, is everything about like plugging in your cell phone at night and when you don't really need to plug in?
Right. Yep.
So you really should unplug that and not need to plug it in
Right.
at night.
Because even some of your power strips are smart power strips that will basically turn things off for you, so you don't have to manually turn them off. Those things, it's all of us doing just a little something that'll make a big difference overall. I think Laverne has a question.
When will you install a smart grid to start turning legs off? Like the dryer is a 220 leg, that wire all the way through your house is charged. Sure, you may have it unplugged, but that 220 wire is still charged. You're still using power.
Well,
So-
there's a couple questions there. When will we have smart grid? If we would have
Well,
got the
actually,
auto grant.
just a small smart meter on the homes versus even your whole grid. I know your grid's going to be more expensive, but just so people have access to their own. Like Germany, they paint on the sidewalk in front of places how much they use as an embarrassment, and also.
How would you like that?
Well, but
Put
also.
that on the, and make sure you say Laverne said he
Well,
wanted that.
what's
No.
important about that is what they end up doing is they go down the street and say, hey, Bob, how are you using so much less energy when you're in the exact same house I am? And they actually start working together to figure out why.
Yeah.
And California is doing that too by giving the consumer information about the exact same house with the exact same square footage and what it's using versus what you're using. And then they find out, what the differences are.
Well,
So I'm
it's
just
similar-
wondering when something like that might
Yeah,
happen,
similar to all these things, we have a big wish list, and smart grid is definitely on it. We're prioritizing. For us right now, we thought the wind was a good investment. It's smart grid, we're watching those like we're watching solar, and the cost effectiveness as soon as it's there, then yeah, we would like it, because it gives us a lot more tools. We can do a lot more things with it.
It just seems like you're always adding more generation than you're not. It's just cheaper to not use energy if it's wind or any energy than it is to use energy. And you always seem to be very aggressive on the purchasing energy thing versus highly aggressive at purchasing efficiency as your base load.
Well, we're trying. I mean, but purchasing efficiency really is up to everybody in this room, right?
No,
Because
so-
we're purchasing or having to use less.
What if you gave a percentage of our money back to us when we demonstrated that we reduced our energy load by a certain amount, like you reduced our rates? And then so if you want us to make an investment, because remember, every kilowatt hour we save here, we save
Right,
10
right.
on your end. So you're actually getting the bang for the buck versus us. So what if there could be some sort of like part of my green energy will go directly back into my home or my business?
I'll make a note of that.
You know what I
Put that
mean?
on
And
the
then-
list,
and
because
be
we
able to
are
make my whole
evaluating
business.
a lot of different opportunities next year. And so if you have these kind of ideas,
Oh, millions of them.
put it on, there's a link on that stakeholder process. If you'd share those ideas, and then we'll put it on the list.
If I could make a comment, because Laverne, I heard you mention some of those ideas, which are great, and we're going to get there eventually, right? I mean, we know it. The technology exists to do much of what you suggested before and what many others have. Again, the balancing act comes into play, right? Because what you would propose to do to save money for everybody that's implementing that could, in effect, become a death spiral for those people who can't afford to make investments into energy efficiency at their home. They don't have the wherewithal to do it. And so if we have an ever increasing amount of people that are getting off of our grid and expecting rebates on the energy that they're providing to themselves without contributing to any of the base load bench strength that we need to maintain stability and reliability in the grid and to also back up any of those renewable, you have an ever-increasing, usually at the lower income stratas, of people who can't afford to do any of that or to pay their electric bill, right?
Well, I would think that instead of, like, you have funds for efficiency, you have also funds where you say donate to pay people's energy bills. Now, there's two sets of funds that could be converted into that person's home, which would get rid of their energy bills or get it down to a level in which they can afford.
Perhaps, perhaps. But
Because
again,
you do have those resources that are trying to solve that problem, but on the back end versus on the front end, is what I'm saying.
One of the new programs that I'm involved with developing is that those people who come in and seek energy assistance, we have a new program called One Simple Step to Budget and Managing Your Energy. And so that they will receive a kit with some weatherization items in there and additional education, because we do want to link together. If you are unable to pay your bill, we need to work with you and help them in order to see where they can also take that one simple step to make those changes. So we are working, but again, my focus is primarily those coming to get assistance too.
Sure.
But,
Sure.
And that's ever increasing, right, Judy?
oh, yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's ever increasing just in this with, with no change, to the rate structure to it right now. There's an ever increasing population who are having very, very difficult
We
time
work
getting
with
there.
UNO every year, and they prepare an energy burden study for us that looks at the demographics and looks at what is considered affordable utility rates, and it's showing that the numbers are continuing to go up. And certainly, it's in our metropolitan area, there's certain pockets that had higher poverty, because again, that ratio of energy burden is based on income versus your utility. And it also goes back to where and how you live and how efficient the place is. And some of our low income don't have much choices.
Right, they're in shabby old
Yeah.
homes, right.
Hey, Graham, I know you had a question.
I was just curious if you had any hard numbers on what you learned from your energized program, working with them, how much energy that program saved the city of OPPD.
I don't have it off the top of my head. Hey, if you want to follow up with me, I can give you what we have. And I don't know if they've got everything finalized or not, but I can walk across the street and get you whatever you need, I think. Yeah.
I just wanted to, I can't remember what it's called, but I did get the box on my meter.
Oh, the AC load control?
What's it called?
AC load control?
The
Where,
one, so that you get the rebate and it helps this summer,
Yeah.
in the summer. And I didn't have any problem with it, I just want to say, a great idea.
Thank you.
It didn't seem to affect my comfort this summer, because I don't think my air conditioner on very long.
well, what I shared with you is we went over 3 years tweaking it to make sure that the comfort level, we really did. We worked really hard.
It's nothing. Of course, we didn't have a very hot summer either.
No,
But I
but
think, I also, I got 30, I think. You sure it's this?
well, it's in 2 segments, so you'll get a 31st, and then right about now, you'll be getting another $20 that says, hey, you went through the whole, because did you go through the whole summer?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
as soon as I got it.
Well, touch base with me afterwards, because you do have to have it through the whole summer so that we can actually,
Yeah, it took a long time to get it to my house.
oh, that's a bummer.
I'm just
One
curious,
more question, and then I'm getting the big, gotta go, and my teachers are calling.
just what's the top few things that you've learned from the stakeholder process? You said you've had whole bunches of meetings, and I'm just curious what,
Russ, you've been more involved in
what
those
you think
stakeholder
you've learned
meetings.
from
Do you
that.
want to give some overview? And before he does,
Just
I just want to
generally.
point up here, we talked about the Green Omaha Coalition. We're supporting and partnering with them on the Green Home Tour, November 9th, and then the 10th. There's the report, there's my email, and then we'll probably we have some more sessions coming on
Not this year. No,
next year though. So stay tuned.
What role is smart energy to the love tracks of your location?
It's going to be at
Millard Lumber.
Millard Lumber, and what's the exact address, do you remember?
That's
It's in Millard.
Yeah, there you go. And they've been working really hard on this. They've got some really creative ideas. So it's going to be really good.
Is it inside Millard Lumber?
It's inside Millard Lumber Monday, where they're going to have booths, and you can talk to how-to kind of people. Well, how to take booths. Yeah. But we'll one day, and then they also have it where the first day you go out to the homes and you see, here's what we did, and the next day you go back to Millard Lumber and you'll have the different people and the companies there that supported that, and here's how to do it. So it's a really good thing. All right, back to your question.
Laverne, to your question on stakeholder engagement, the two things we learned, I think number one, we learned that we're doing a pretty decent job, we're doing okay, and then second, I would say that we've got room for improvement. There are some things that we can do to be more tailored, to collect more input from our customer owners, to allow them to communicate with us quicker, clearer, and be able to get that input into us. And that'll be something that we're going to be working on here in the next year to try to fine-tune some of that, I mean, in general terms.
So just real quick, because all of you guys spent your Wednesday night here at a library listening to, it became a Russ and I partnership. Did we meet your expectations? Is it what you had expected? Are there things we can do next time to improve this?
This is PTT.
I like that.
Make sure you put those comments on the evaluation forms, because I capture all that. Anything for additional questions or topics that you may not see Denise to give them to, put them on there. Because then I make sure I get it to the appropriate people to say, hey, we need this. And if you had any questions, or, it's okay to leave your name. If you don't want to leave your name, that's fine. But we do use these. We also like to track where you're coming from, because we've held these at the different libraries throughout the city to try to reach different areas. And it comes back with, it's been a variety of ages, it's been a variety of where people are coming from, so we do use this information. And if you need a pin to fill out the evaluation, I have pins. And then when you come back and give me the evaluation in the background, I'll give you an energy pin.
So thank you guys.
Anybody else need a pin to fill out the evaluation? Thank you all for coming.
By the way, push those thermostats. I want you to know, only 20%. Raise your hand.
How you doing?
If I didn't catch you when you came in to fill out, just put your name down here. I appreciate it if you would.
Yes.
Thanks, Roger. Good to see you. Are you getting the evaluation forms? Okay. Thank you very much. Wow.
What's that? I know, I gotta take my poor kid too. He's like, oh.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that way. It's kind of hard.
Thank you very much.
You have to look at it.